Have you ever noticed something strange about how responsibility works in the modern world? When something goes wrong inside a system, the blame almost never moves upward. It moves down, toward the people with the least power, toward the people who are easiest to replace, toward the people whose voices are the weakest. A mistake happens. Documents disappear. A process fails. And suddenly the system begins searching for someone to blame, but not necessarily the person responsible. Instead, the person who is safest to blame. Because inside most institutions, there's an invisible rule. Power rarely holds itself accountable. And once you see this pattern, you begin to notice it everywhere. In offices, corporations, governments, and sometimes, even in the smallest workplaces. The invisible hierarchy. Every organized system creates a hierarchy. Managers, supervisors, administrators, workers. On paper, the rules are supposed to apply equally to everyone. But reality is rarely that simple, because hierarchies create something else. Distance from consequences. The higher someone climbs inside a structure, the more layers exist between them and the outcomes of their decisions. And when something goes wrong, those layers act like insulation. Responsibility begins to travel downward until it reaches someone who has the least ability to resist. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote something unsettling. Madness is rare in individuals, but in groups, parties, and institutions, it is the rule. Because institutions develop their own survival instincts, not to protect truth, but to protect stability. The downward flow of blame. There is an old pattern that appears in almost every organization. A mistake happens. Confusion begins. Records are checked. People start asking questions. And slowly, a narrative forms. Not necessarily the truth, but the version of events that causes the least disruption to the hierarchy. The system asks a quiet question, not what actually happened, but who can absorb the blame without destabilizing the structure? And the answer is usually predictable. The person at the lowest level, the person with the least authority, the person with the least protection. Because blaming someone higher creates problems. Blaming someone lower creates silence. Power protects itself. Many people assume this happens because individuals are corrupt, but the truth is often more complicated. Systems train people to protect those who share their level of power, not consciously, but instinctively. If someone at a higher level is punished, it creates fear among everyone above. So people begin to protect their own layer of the hierarchy. Records become vague. Responsibility becomes unclear. And slowly, blame begins sliding downward. This idea was explored deeply by the French philosopher Michel Foucault. He argued that power in modern systems rarely appears as open oppression. Instead, it operates through subtle structures that shape behavior and responsibility. Power protects itself not through force, but through structure. When truth becomes secondary. In many organizations, truth is not the highest priority. Stability is. Because if every mistake exposed the real chain of responsibility, the entire hierarchy would constantly be under threat. So systems develop defense mechanisms, ambiguous language, collective blame, unclear responsibility. Sometimes entire groups are blamed instead of individuals, because blaming everyone means blaming no one. This dynamic appears in many stories about institutions. In the series Chernobyl, there's a chilling line. What is the cost of lies? It's not that we'll mistake them for the truth. The real danger is that if we hear enough lies, then we no longer recognize the truth at all. When systems protect themselves long enough, truth becomes an inconvenience. The psychological effect on people. For people at the bottom of hierarchies, this creates a constant pressure because they understand something instinctively. When something goes wrong, they may become the easiest solution, not because they are guilty, but because they are available. This slowly creates a culture of fear. People stop speaking honestly. They stop questioning decisions. They focus only on protecting themselves. Because survival inside a hierarchy often depends on one thing: avoiding blame. The real problem is not simply unfairness, it is something deeper. When responsibility consistently flows downward, systems stop learning from their mistakes. Problems repeat. Processes fail again, and the same cycle begins once more. Mistake, confusion, blame, silence. Without real accountability, systems slowly become fragile. They look stable on the outside, but internally they are full of unresolved failures. Solution. So what can individuals do inside systems like this? The answer is not rebellion, and it is not blind obedience either. The solution is something quieter: clarity, documentation, and calm persistence, because facts are one of the few things systems cannot easily ignore. Dates, times, records, witnesses, processes. When responsibility is clearly documented, it becomes harder for blame to move randomly. Truth becomes anchored to evidence. How to apply this knowledge to your life? There are a few simple habits that protect individuals inside complex systems. First, always document processes clearly, not emotionally, but factually. Second, separate facts from accusations. Facts are powerful. Accusations create resistance. Third, stay calm when explaining situations. Anger weakens credibility. Clarity strengthens it. And finally, understand the system you are working inside. Because once you understand how responsibility flows, you stop being surprised when it moves downward. Instead, you prepare for it. Most people believe systems are designed to produce fairness, but often, systems are designed to produce stability. And stability sometimes comes at the expense of truth. Responsibility flows downward. Silence protects those above, and the structure remains intact. But individuals who understand this pattern gain something important, a kind of awareness. They learn how systems behave under pressure, and once you understand that behavior, you begin to see the invisible rules that govern modern institutions. Rules that are rarely written, but quietly shape the lives of millions of people every day.